Well, I do want to say hello and thanks for taking your time on Friday afternoon to join us for Ainclear's Fireside Chat. I'm Michelle Robbins, and I'm joined today by our Systems Administrator and IT Lead, Alyssa Friesen. I'm Ainclear's VP of Product Innovation, leading marketing technology and data strategies. We appreciate your time and hope wherever you are and wherever you're joining us from, you're staying safe and healthy. Today, we're going to have a pretty casual conversation about the challenges companies, and specifically the IT departments, have in controlling and securing platforms, data, and apps in organizations of really every size. Whether you're a small business or a much larger organization, this is a challenge that we've seen no matter how big or small you are. So we encourage you to share your questions and comments with us throughout this conversation. Feel free to jump in at any time. We'll, like I said, be pretty casual about this, and we really do want to get input and feedback from you guys out there as well. So let's kick it off. What are Martech MacGyvers? What do we mean when we talk about Martech MacGyvers, right? I use this phrase generally to describe anyone in an organization that needs a solution to a problem. And being a self-starter, they'll seek out that solution independent of consulting with the dev or IT teams. Now, I don't know if everyone saw Scott Brinker's latest update to the Martech landscape. He released it a couple of days ago. It might have been just yesterday, in fact. He now lists about 8,000 technology solutions, from large-scale platforms to software that essentially operate as an API hub, to down to browser extensions, right? So there's really a solution just about, or a combination of solutions for any problem out there that you can imagine. Now, what we want to talk about today are the pitfalls and problems that you'll want to avoid, and how getting everyone on the same page with Martech governance is the key to doing that. So let's kick it off, Alyssa, with talking about the importance of a structured Martech onboarding process. You were one of the first colleagues I interacted with at Ainclear, and you've got a really well-defined onboarding process. So talk a little bit about how that helps, and how it helps especially get in front of Martech MacGyver type situations.
Okay, yeah. So an onboarding process is, a lot of times you'll have one set up, like HR will have one set up, or the team that they're working on, just to say, here's our handbook and here's how we work as a team. But having an IT onboarding checklist is really important, for both in terms of make sure that they're set up correctly and know how to use everything, and also kind of as an introduction. So it's really important that they're not like scared to come to IT thinking like, oh, this is a dumb question, or this is something that they've talked about before. So I really view it as that, as both, because I could easily, send somebody the link to our wiki and say, here's all the information that you'll need for working here. But the onboarding process really kind of like adds that familiarity and lets them know that you're there to help them with questions. So in terms of Martech, the onboarding is definitely important, because people need to know, for one, what tools you have. That's one of the issues that you see a lot of the like roll your own solutions, is that somebody's like, oh, well, I decided to put all these pictures on Imager because I didn't know where else to store them. And during the onboarding process, we would have said, hey, we use Box for all of our file storage, and you can have public link pictures and stuff. So just knowing that all of those are options. Same goes for having people running their own types of chats. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna message through like, I don't remember the name of it. There's one that I don't remember. But having messaging through, or even like, using their own personal Gmail to message people, saying, hey, we have like a corporate Google chat that we use. So a lot of those onboarding processes are key in showing them that they exist, and also how to use them. I will physically show people how to use our systems, and then also give them documentation, because your first day is always really hectic, and I spit like 15 programs at you. There's no way I expect somebody to remember all of those for the rest of the time they're working there.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the wiki that you developed, because I think that is something that's key as well. People don't People don't think a lot about process and process documentation and how important that can be, not just for getting a handle as a new employee or a new person in an organization on how things operate and where things live, but in understanding. It helps in the event that it helps establish institutional knowledge, right? So that everyone, let's say that you decide to take a 2-week vacation to France or something, right? And you were out. We need to have a place to go where everyone knows, okay, if you have a question, Alyssa's not here. We have all this documentation. All of the processes are here. Talk about that and talk about your creation of that.
Yeah, that's something I had started working on a while ago, a year or so ago. I think probably at some point after I came back from maternity leave, where it was like, well, this is not here. And then a couple of things, I came back and I was like, well, what is this system doing here? And it's like, well, we didn't know what to do. So that was a little bit on me. But documentation is definitely important to like a business of any size, right? If you are like a one-man shop even, you're going to want documentation so that if you bring somebody on, you're not sitting there trying to scramble and remember how you do everything.
Right.
What I started doing is every time I trained somebody or we got a new system, I would take screenshots and have instructions so that people know how to use it. And so the wiki is great because it's it's a Google site, so it's free. I don't within using our G Suite, I don't have to pay for a domain. I don't need to worry about other people outside of AimClear seeing it, because within G Suite you can set permissions to people with email addresses in this domain. Mm-hmm. So it's been really important and really great, and I think it helps a lot of people, especially in the past couple of years as we've added more remote people where they can't just turn their head and yell at me across the room.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was a different process with onboarding remote employees versus a local employee, or if you basically have, the same process regardless.
Yeah, it's generally the same process where we would have the remote employee come into the Duluth office so that I can be with them and show them everything. And I guess there's some fewer things that they need to know about, just in terms of, because I like how to use our printer within the office or the doorbell.
Yeah. Yeah. What I found really helpful about having a wiki, and this was something that we had in a prior organization that I worked as well, is that not just for, having one place for institutional knowledge, but, every department can add their own systems and processes in that structure, and then it becomes searchable. So it should really be your first, everyone's first stop for, I need a solution. Maybe we already have this. Maybe another department is using something similar, that kind of thing. So just having a place where employees can go and understand the totality of what an organization is doing with their MarTech is really, really critical. And when we talk about that, the suite of MarTech or the MarTech stacks that get built within organizations, the really, really important part of that is vetting, right? Vetting the tools and services and apps. So a lot of people might think, what's the big deal? I'm not bothering IT or dev, and I can solve the problem myself. It's just a small little tool or a small little app, and they have really good intentions, but they're not thinking about the potential for harm. So if you could talk a little bit about the importance of properly vetting third-party tools, services, and apps, and why folks really need to work with their IT staff on this.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that a lot of people, either like in a personal capacity or when they're adding things at work, that they don't think about, because it's not, they're like, oh, this is like a public application or something. It's got to be safe. It's like, it's on the internet, but I've heard of this brand or something. But like in reality, that really doesn't mean anything. So, and something can be safe for personal use, but not good for business use. So, like an example that I have is that you need to make sure like how much of your stuff is being public too. So when we started getting our MarTech team onto GitHub, I probably should have kind of done a little bit more research and training just on how the default project settings and stuff. And it wasn't until I was sitting, I think it was at the Google Next conference, and I had stumbled upon something. It might have been a link to something on Reddit. seems very likely. And it ended up bringing me to our, oh no, it was a link to a GIF that they used as their like user profile. It was weird. But I ended up finding that a lot of their repositories were public, so I was looking at it and I was like, oh God, like there's like a client ID in here, and that doesn't necessarily mean something to anybody. But if somebody knows what to look for, it can be dangerous when.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about data security overall and how kind of people rolling up their own solutions to things are just not working really tightly with the dev and IT teams. You can have problems like that. And, it's interesting because no one's going to adopt a massive platform, right? Like no one's going to go, we don't use Salesforce. I think we should use Salesforce. Let's deploy Salesforce, right? That's something that's going to involve a lot of stakeholders and a lot of different people because it is a massive platform and there's a much bigger investment to be made. But people don't really think twice about things like browser extensions or WordPress plugins even, right? In the 12 years that I ran technology for a media company, that we only had two problems, one of our flagship publishing sites, and both of them were the result of non-technical staff using, one was a browser extension and one was a WordPress plugin that did some very bad things inside a database and almost brought the site down. And I caught it pretty quickly, but that resulted in much stricter policies around permissions and who had access to what. And that's a tough line because marketing is more technical these days by nature, and a lot of the people doing marketing are more technical than maybe would have been in the past. And so they make assumptions about their level of technical expertise, and they're thinking about utility. Does this work for me? Does it solve my problem? They're not going to think about the teams that an IT staff or developer would think about. And that's why you really need to work with those people, because they're going to think about those questions and they're going to understand the implications of any different thing you're thinking of using. So, work with your IT team. This is kind of the big takeaway here. But in talking about people rolling up different solutions and the fact that there are so many solutions out there right now, when we look at redundancy and cost containment with respect to Martech, we're talking about an organization that can be anywhere from 5 to 10 to 20 people, and imagine all of those people rolling their own, right? Using this tool, that tool, this tool, that tool. What kind of problems does this open up?
Having all those tools, one of the problems even with paid tools is that I've found, because I also get to manage all of our digital subscriptions, is that when people are rolling their own, you'll find out that you'll have like 4 people paying for the same tool, and it's not like a one user tool. So like there's just money that people are often losing because we've got 2 instances of Python anywhere, and we could just have one account with 2 logins and it's the exact same price, and we can drop this. So that's definitely stuff that the redundant, you don't want to be redundant in what you're paying for. And then in terms of, you want to be really careful about your data redundancy. Like you don't want to have copies of anything important or confidential or private that is somewhere that you don't know or can't access. So we have a password management system, and I can't have somebody saving that to their own password management system, because then, if they leave, or if that client leaves, or if there's a breach, I need to know who has access to our information and how to remove access from them. So that it gets really difficult because you can't really police everybody, and like I'm not staring at everybody's screen all day long. That sounds
not yet.
That sounds mostly really boring. Like every once in a while, maybe exciting. Not maybe I do it. So yeah, that's a big issue, is knowing, and especially with things like GDPR coming up, you have to be extremely careful with where your data is located, even for current clients and current projects and current employees.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, especially, and then there's people kind of rolling their own, like even project management, like doing doing like Trello or another task system, well, okay, maybe they're putting like account names in there or
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, it gets really difficult if everyone's not essentially standardized on the same tools. And that can be hard because, especially as you have people coming from companies who used one specific tool, or there's just one tool they really like and it works really well for them, it's really hard to move people off of something they've always worked with and onto something new. I mean, even when you're talking about, internally, like we use a specific project management tool, if we suddenly were to decide we're going to use a different tool, I think we'd probably see some people going, but wait, because everyone's comfortable and understands and knows how to work within this thing. So it's really natural, I think, that people want to bring the tools they're used to with them into an organization, or into even, working with clients or things like that. But there are just so many reasons not to. That my approach in all of the roles that I've been in, I've always worked, cross-functionally, and I've always worked with multiple departments. And people would come to me and usually say, "Oh, I want to try out this platform," or "Can we deploy this tool?" Or otherwise kind of get distracted by new shiny things that are out there in the industry or that people are talking about as being, "Oh, this thing's great. You got to try it. And I would always ask the person, what problem are you trying to solve? Like, don't tell me about the tool, tell me about the problem. Because, understanding, what they need from the tool really helps you understand how you can analyze your existing Martech stack and your existing suite of tools. Because very often I found people didn't realize we already had a solution for that. It's like, oh, we have that, and it's part of this platform, and they just never realized it. On average, I think I found that, especially when you talk about big platforms, any kind of big, piece of technology that has multiple components or multiple feature sets, I found that people use about 20% of a platform, and it's the key 20% that they need. So that's what they live in, and that's what they use every day. So they never think like, what else can this do? And can this also solve this problem? And more importantly, how does this piece tie into the other pieces that we're using, that everyone's using, so that everyone can be on the same page about things, and getting communication across departments. All of this really is related to how you roll out a Martech stack. And this is something that actually our CTO, Joe Warner, and I are going to be talking about on our May 8th fireside chat. We're going to get into building a Martech stack and how to avoid a lot of the things that we're talking about when you're looking at the build process. So something else you touched on was understanding data, data security, and how, beyond expense, things that can result from having a Frankenstack, right? And having solutions just getting rolled out in every different direction, threats to company and client data. I discovered a similar problem that you mentioned, where not understanding where all the data lives, where we had an editor who was using a database completely outside of all of our systems. That was actually a pretty significant portion of workflow. And it was something that we literally just kind of stumbled upon. And we're like, oh, if anything had happened to you, or if you had left, all of this like pretty significant piece would be gone. So we worked with how we could integrate that. Did we already have a solution for that? And again, I think communication is super important. What other tips do you have with respect to getting everybody sort of on the same page?
Yeah, and that's difficult sometimes, because you can have like all the like tools and wikis and rules and stuff in the world, and you're still gonna find like an employee that's like, nope, I'm gonna save all my passwords in this spreadsheet. And it's like, nope, you can't do that. But I think part of that is really having people understanding like how things can be compromised, and that, yes, like you have a password on here and it's 37 characters, but that doesn't make it immune to somebody else getting in. One of the things that I add on every single system that allows it is multi-factor authentication, and that really cuts down on like social engineering attacks and phishing and a lot of other like man in the middle browser attacks. So that really helps with those, and that's one of the like security like pillars that I'm focusing on. But also I like to kind of educate users about things that happen also, and they might not always care, but like when we have a system when a system has a breach, I let people know, and I say like, hey, this system had a breach, and our emails were not affected, but clients might have been. Or we can say, hey, there was a breach here, but it only affected users that didn't have this particular security policy in place, which we have. And I think that really helps to kind of show people like the things I'm doing. Yeah, like they probably do slow down your own processes and stuff, but there's a good reason for it. And here's an example of the time that they worked. It's not saying like, here's this rock, it keeps away bears. Look at, there's no bears.
So we have a question from Steve Walther, who's joined us, asking if we can talk about the difference between how in-house and external client files are managed.
Okay, I would actually say they are, for us in-house, like in-house marketing and other tools, and external clients, they're generally the same, because we really want the same kind of security on our own files and processes as we do on our clients. So we might have the main difference for us would be that employees have access to almost all of the in-house things, versus client files are kind of by team. So an example, like I am not a web developer, but I would have client access to kind of like some of our web development files, not necessarily the passwords. And well, I do, because I have access to everything, but kind of we have access kind of to all of that and stuff. And that actually is partially because we like to allow people to kind of like explore and be kind of like interdepartmental about their work. But then client files are just, if you're on this team, if you're on this team, then you have access to it. I really abide as much as I can by the not least knowledge. What's the?
I know what you're thinking. Yeah. The
privilege.
The least amount of most privilege. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like, okay, if you're on this project, you can have access to it, or if you're just on this like sub project of this client, that's what you get access to, and that really helps in how we manage them. I don't know if that entirely answers your question.
So I think you might also be wondering specific technology-wise, because there are times where we need to share across their internal system with our internal system, right? And we might be using something. We use Box. They might use Dropbox, or they might use Google Drive, right? How do you find the best way to manage that?
Yeah, that ends up getting a little tricky. Especially because, some systems mesh together really well and some are just way out there. So it ends up having to really be a client by client basis. What works for us is ideally, like if we have a lot of files that need to go back and forth, ideally we can add them to our systems, because then I can manage them and make sure that the correct people have access to it. Otherwise, we will occasionally have to kind of like roll up an instance of like Dropbox, if that's, what the client ends up, like maybe that's the only thing they know and they really strongly prefer it. Then for that, we might temporarily have an extra system just for a specific client. I'm not gonna force my ways on all the clients, just all the employees.
Okay. So we have a question from an unknown in Clarion, who is wondering how to win IT points. So talk about IT points first, give some context, and then give some tips, because we'd all love them.
IT points are something that I've just like randomly started in quarantine, where I'm giving people IT points for things. And I'm not going to tell you all the ways that you get them, but some of the ways are when people kind of like do, like, instead of asking me for something, like I get questions like, oh, who's in this group email? And then, but they realize, oh, hey, there's a whole spreadsheet that tells you that, just putting it out there, guys, FYI.
And where is that spreadsheet? Is it in Box, Basecamp, or Drive?
Oh, it's in Drive, and it's linked in the wiki. So I'm trying to maybe it'll help try to incentivize people. Or I had somebody ask me a question where it's like, hey, a client needed us to make an account for this. Like, what should I do with that? And I was I was really happy. That's how Tim got some points. I was really happy because I really needed somebody for us to not create the client account, because this was particularly within Bing. You cannot transfer the ownership of it. It's just impossible. So
I mean, I think it's great. I think that, the culture at AimClear is so open, and I love that you have a point system, and I love that you're open to everyone coming to you and asking you questions and working with you, because all the problems that we're talking about really are more problematic, and more than anything, they're communication problems, right? With people either not feeling that they're going to get the kind of service that they need as quick as they need it. If they need some particular solution, they might want it when they want it and don't want to wait for it to be vetted, don't want to wait, to see if it can work and can integrate and everything. And I think that the better communication structure you have in an organization, the less of that you're going to see. And with everybody feeling open to discussing things and working on the problem together, and being open to other people's input, because it's entirely possible that we've rolled out a piece of Martech that we love and we think is great. Something that I've also seen organizations struggle with is that there are platforms that were 100% designed for engineers by engineers without thinking about how a normal person is going to use this. And so the engineering team might love it because we understand it, and it's like, oh, it's super easy. It works just like this. But you put it in front of someone who's not technical, and it's like, this is kind of a mess and it makes no sense. That means we need to go back to the drawing board and maybe, not inject our own bias into tool selection and find something that works for the people that need to use it. Because 9 times out of 10, we're not the ones using it; they are. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've for sure had times that I've like looked into a tool and I've thought, hey, this is like really intuitive. This is like really simple. And then I've put it in front of somebody and I was like, wait, shoot, this is really intuitive for me, but not necessarily somebody else that, isn't in all these tools all day.
Yeah. So, at this point, I'm kind of wondering, we talk about managing Martech MacGyvers. Is anything different now that we find ourselves, in the situation where a large majority of workers, and especially those that are fortunate enough to be able to work from home, have become remote? Are there any special process changes that need to be considered and are maybe top of mind for you?
Yeah, luckily, because AimClear has a few remote employees anyway, we've already, and I've been working kind of over the past 2 years to get our VPN system up to par and things like that. So we're lucky that we have good systems and processes and documentation in place, so that working from home really didn't make a big business difference for us, aside from having children in the background or dogs and things like that. But I know a lot of other businesses have definitely struggled with that, because maybe they're an office that everybody's got a desktop, and that's the only way that they can get at, or they've only got network access storage. I know I read an article that the port that is used for RDP, which is the remote desktop protocol, so that they can remotely access things like servers and other computers, that port saw just a huge % increase in being found open on the internet, which is really dangerous, because you can't have that port open. So I'm sure a lot of people regretted that. But so the challenges unfortunately, a lot of those challenges to really negate those need to be started before you suddenly have to work from home. It's going to be really hard for a company right now to buy a VPN system and get it installed and remotely train all of your employees to use it, but it's kind of the only option for some people. But otherwise, goes back to, again, having that documentation and having it available for everybody, so that because if somebody is used to always turning around in their chair and asking somebody else a question, which is great, and that works for me too, but if they need to look something up, or they're maybe having trouble with their chat system, something like that, it's good to have other places they can find that information. And also, I think one of the big things with working from home is having users really feel comfortable asking for help and asking questions. Like,
Yeah.
I know I get I've often gotten emails or chats saying like, hey, this is a dumb question, or sorry for bothering you. And it's like, no, it's okay. Like, I want you to ask what you think is a dumb question or bother me,
Yeah.
instead of, like spinning up like a new like Google Cloud project and taking a walk at it. Like, I would take 100 dumb questions over like somebody doing something themselves and like making a big mess afterwards.
Yeah. Always better to ask questions first.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great chat, Alyssa. I hope folks have learned a few things. Why don't you wrap us up with some of your top tips before we head off?
Yeah, let me add that to the stream. There we go. So I just, some of the takeaways is one of the big things that obviously it doesn't help for the past, but like moving forward is to have an onboarding process. And it doesn't matter if you're, like a small 2 or 3 person company or you're a large organization. It's really important both in terms of getting people to know what your tech stack is and how to use it and how to access information about how to use it, as well as giving them kind of like making yourself seem a little bit more personable, and you're not like the IT person in the basement that is going to snarl at you when they ask for a password change. I think all those things are just really important for having an onboarding process. It also kind of helps you get reacquainted with what you have and how to use it. Another one is like to empower your employees, but set limits. So I do allow people to install some browser plugins, but then I have a system. If you use Chrome and you use G Suite, it can tell me what browser plugin somebody has installed. So I'm giving people like a little bit of like leeway and stuff, because it's not really feasible to go and whitelist everything that you want to allow and then block all the other things. But like giving that to people so they don't feel like they're just like locked in and there's no change. So I think those, and then empowering them to also come to you and not just sit there like wondering what they're going to do with themselves. And then along that is like with the browser plugins, monitoring people without invading them. Like we have a remote desktop system that I can remotely help somebody with, but as I tell them on the onboarding process, like I'd never log into their computer without telling them first or without them knowing. Same for if we need to like access something in their email. I always like tell people that like, hey, we're looking for this. I'm looking for this file, and I'm gonna end up searching some of these things. So I think that's an important thing, and that helps figure out what your Martech stack is and monitoring it. Vetting new tools is always really important, obviously. Seeing what they access and what they request, kind of like when you connect something to Facebook, it will tell you like, hey, this is going to access your profile name and the names of your friends and your likes. There's a similar thing is available for a lot of tools. When you connect something with G Suite, it tells you what it's adding. So yeah, those are ones that are definitely important to vet. And with that, like auditing existing ones, because sometimes, some programs and applications like should in theory tell you when they are accessing something extra or changing what they're accessing or how they're doing it. But the fact is that they don't always, especially if you have, little third-party tools that aren't like a professional organization, and they don't necessarily know what all of the kind of rules are for that.
Yeah.
And also auditing the existing ones helps as well, because sometimes there's new features that will let you remove other things in your stack and kind of be more integrated and possibly cheaper. Having clear documentation, definitely, as we discussed, is it's good for your employees because they can access information that they need whenever they need to. But it's really good like for yourself as like the IT team, because then like I don't have to worry about if I am gone for 4 days that nobody's going to be able to know how to do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, they might have to be reminded that the wiki exists and it has a search function, but I don't. That's not something that's gonna like keep me from enjoying a vacation, or if something like happens to me, there's enough information there that the company is not going to come to a standstill, and that's really important as a business owner too. You kind of follow the like hit by a bus rule, where like, okay, if this person gets hit by a bus, will we be able to replace them? And obviously, nobody wants to think about what if the company needs to replace me, but I think a good kind of like IT person is going to consider that, just because it helps them and the company. I know there are some kind of administrators that worry too much about that, where they say, hey, there's all this documentation for everything I've done. They could really easily replace me. And I mean, I guess I wouldn't. That's hard. You just need to do it anyway for yourself and your company. And then being accessible for your employees or clients or anybody really to ask you questions, and being like friendly and stuff. Like, I'm not gonna like grumble about needing to like walk over to, when we're in the office, like walk over to somebody's desk to take a look at their mouse, or say like, oh well, I've got 10 minutes left of the day, you're gonna have to wait till Monday for me to reset that password. Like, because all those things are, if you're not accessible and they don't want to go to you, they're definitely going to try and roll their own solution. They're like, okay, I'm tired of having to ask IT for this because they always make me feel like an idiot. I'm just going to make my own thing, and then I won't need to ask them.
Absolutely. I think that's critical. It really is. So, well, I don't think we have any more questions. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and encourage you to plan to spend the same time next Friday afternoon, same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to discuss how crises changes buyer behavior. And for that one, that's going to be a conversation with our founder, Marty Weintraub, our CMO, Susan Winograd, and our VP of Public Relations, Joe Thornton. So until then, stay healthy and be well, friends.
All right, bye.